Yeah, Michael McIntosh. I'm the former sheriff. And then there's a lot of people that call me Mac, which is short for McIntosh. Part of my campaign slogan is Bring Mac Back. And so in Colorado, there are 64 counties. 62 of those counties have elected sheriffs. And the sheriffs, one of the main responsibilities of the sheriff is law and order in their county, as well as maintaining the jail in their county. So they're responsible for all of the in custody arrest for the county. So Adams County is very diverse. Adams County is a little over 500,000 people. Adams County also has several cities in it: Thornton, Westminster, Brighton, Commerce City, Federal Heights. All of those cities, when they make an arrest, when their police department makes an arrest, if that person needs to go to jail, they go to the Adams County Detention Facility. That's the role and responsibility of the sheriff, is to run that detention facility. A different story. Of course, we shouldn't be keeping you in jail. Of course, we should let you go back, be a productive member of society, and go through the criminal justice process, because we know that you're going to appear in court again and go through that process. But if you've demonstrated to us time and time again that you don't have any respect for or due regard for our criminal justice system, and you never show up in court, and you continue to commit crimes, I'm not real sure why we would want to release those folks back into our communities to continue to commit crime. And I think that is where the sticking point is in all of this. We need to come back to a sense of justice and make sure that we're putting our collective heads together, make sure that we are putting the right people into jail, because that's where they need to be, because they continually commit crimes. And those that don't need to be in jail, well, let's get them out of jail. Because as a sheriff, I can tell you, it's very, very expensive to run a jail. There's you know, the medical, the food, all of the contracts that go with running a jail, not to mention the personnel cost for staffing a jail. That gets to be extremely expensive. If we don't have to put somebody in jail, we should not be putting them in jail. But I believe that there are a lot of folks that have demonstrated that they have become criminals. That's what their role in society has become. They don't have a job. They're out committing crimes to provide. We should not continually put those folks back out into our communities to victimize our community members. And I think that has a large part to do with our increase in crime that we are seeing. Yeah, so when folks come into, and I can only speak from when I was the sheriff.
Yes, of course.
When folks would come into the Adams County Jail, if they were going to be housed there, so if they were going to be spending some time there, it would be different if they were going to be bonded out soon. But if they were going to be housed there for any length of time, their name would be submitted to ICE, and ICE would determine whether or not this is somebody that that they wanted to put a hold on or not. The other, I guess, part of the other sticking point is there was concerns about whether or not a sheriff had the legal authority to hold somebody on an ICE hold if all of the other charges were cleared. So somebody comes into the jail, ICE puts a detainer on that person, says, you know, we would like to bring that person into our custody. we as the sheriff could not hold that person for ICE after they cleared all of their charges. So if you came in for a third-degree assault and you bonded out on that third-degree assault, I could not just hold you in my facility on what we call an ICE hold. So ICE would need to produce a document that had been signed by a judge. Once that by a federal judge, once that document had been signed by a federal judge or magistrate, then we could hold that person for ICE. And say the only way that it's a several prong approach that you have to take with fentanyl, and you have to get all of the players kind of on board, and that's what we were trying to do in the State House at the end of the last legislative session. It is beyond me why we would allow somebody to possess fentanyl at the same level of another drug and just call it a misdemeanor, when we absolutely know the deadly consequences that fentanyl has had on our community. And I will continue to hold those in the State House responsible, and I will continue to fight to get that limit of possession for fentanyl lowered to a more reasonable amount that is comparative to its lethality. It is a lethal drug in very small amounts. Why we would want somebody to possess lethal amounts of fentanyl is beyond me. And the other thing that I think that we've got to do, and I don't know that I've seen it yet, but we are going to have to start holding the dealers of fentanyl accountable as if they were possessing a lethal weapon, because they are. It's no different than somebody possessing and using a lethal weapon against somebody, because it is causing death. And we need to treat a fentanyl overdose as a homicide. So we just have to stand up and have a loud voice and push back. And I truly believe that the community wants people in position, in leadership positions, that can continue to do that, to be the voice of the community and to push back. And I would say that this election cycle, it's very, very important that we put people into the State House, or we look at whether or not we should retain judges, or we look at who we put into the elected offices. Are they going to be men and women that are going to stand up for the safety of their community? You certainly, I've told people that I was with the Adams County Sheriff's Office for 31 years. And there's that old saying that sometimes you can't see the forest through all the trees. So I've had an opportunity over the course of the last 3.5 years to look at the sheriff's office from an outside perspective. And through that, you also start to realize, because it wasn't until recently that I decided I was going to come back and run for sheriff. But if I was to do this again, I would do some things differently, or maybe even put a little bit more emphasis on some of the things that we were doing, and maybe a little bit less on some of the things that we were doing. So we've said our role in law enforcement is to have safe communities, to put bad guys in jail. When alls we do is answer a radio call, or alls we do is walk the jail floor, and never engage with the community that we serve, we're missing the boat. And I think that we were doing that, and we were doing that well. But I don't think that we were necessarily, as a leadership staff, I don't think we were necessarily taking the best care of our people that we could. I think that we are in a place where we have to have somebody in that position, in the sheriff's position, that wants to embrace the cultural differences in our community and the diversity in our community, and wants to work hand in hand with our community to solve the issues, because each community has different issues. Bennett and Strasburg are part of Adams County. The issues that they face out there, the problems that they need to solve out there, are different than the ones that are in the Commerce City area, which are different than the ones that are in the Thornton area. And we have to have somebody in position that, one, understands that, and two, has worked to ensure that we're listening, that we're involved in those communities and listening to what those folks in that community is what's important to them. And so one of the things that we've done just to kind of kick that off is we've created a group that's called Action, which is Adams County Transparency in Our Neighborhoods. And we've had our first meeting, and what we want to do, what our vision for that is to have a representative from all of the different communities throughout Adams County, and bring them together probably on a monthly basis to meet with the sheriff and to talk about the things that are important to them in their communities, to kind of be the voice for their communities. And when I talk about communities, it's not necessarily just a geographical area, but it's also a cultural or an economic community. And again, each one of those is going to be different. In order for me to be as successful as I would like to be, I have to pair the right people in those communities that want to help solve what's going on in those communities. In personal terms, since I've been away, I've had I had 2 grandkids that were born right before I left the Adams County Sheriff's Office. I now have 4, and I certainly understand and get the pleasure of being with those grandkids. And I had always been told, that having grandkids is better than having kids, and we should have had the grandkids first. And I certainly did. You just don't understand that impact until you have those little ones. Yeah, my favorite burritos are from Las Delicias at 75th and Conifer. That's my wife and I love to go and get the chicken burritos there.